Hockey season won't be around forever, so get in on all the action now with DraftKings, the leader in one-day fantasy sports. DraftKings is giving you players a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes. They aren't lying. It's millions of dollars. Claim your free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes when you use the code THPN to sign up.
And playing daily fantasy hockey is simple. Just pick your lineup, stay under the salary cap, and see how your team stacks up against the competition. Feel the sweats like never before.
I'm feeling it.
I'm feeling it later tonight. I got to play hockey, so I'm going to feel
very wet
too. But every goal, hit, assist, it means so much more with the DraftKings daily fantasy lineup. Baseball fans, you may have missed out on season-long fantasy, so now is the time to get in on all of the daily fantasy action, where DraftKings has even more ways to make it rain. With DraftKings, payday comes every day for players, so what are you waiting for? Head to the app now.
So download the DraftKings app now, whether you have iPhone or an Android device, whatever, you can get it. I think you probably even get it on your desktop as well. And use the code THPN during sign-up. This week, DraftKings is putting you in the action with a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes. That's code THPN, and you can get a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes only on DraftKings. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
I was walking through the halls of a Minnesota rink when along came a Wild fan who started talking smack to me. He said, I bet you never liked the Blues until they won a cup. And so I calmly turned to him and said, hey man, listen up. I admit it's pretty great to win Lord Stanley's prize, but listen, I've been waiting for this moment my whole life. Yes, sir, I'm a Blues fan. Yes, sir, I'm a Blues fan. Heartbreak's all I knew, man. That team from old St. Lou, man. Got a cup in here, 52, man. Give me a Let's Go Blues. I know Arbor, Unger, Picker, Plager, Ab, McDonald, Shock, Hall, Chris Moore, Patey, Harvey, Jimmy, Robert, Saberin, Berenson, Thompson, Eggers, Hess, Roberto, Pierre, Plant, Jacques, Plant, Gossip, Merrick, Vince, Urbano, Stevenson, Davidson, St. Marseille, McCreary, Leftley, Ecclestone, Huck, Palace, Harry, Talbot, Keenan, Sandy, Yassi. Yes, sir, I'm a Blues fan. Yes, sir, I'm a Blues fan. Heartbreak's all I knew, man. That team from old St. Lou, man. Got a cup in here, 52, man. Give me a Let's Go Blues.
And now, the starting lineup for your Bluenotes podcast. Tom Franklin.
And no Wags today, but there is Mason. Hello and welcome to Bluenotes, located on the best city on the Mississippi, the best in the Midwest. We've got that Stanley Cup power, too sweet to be sour. And if you're still curious, we are talking about St. Louis. Actually, if you're still clueless, we're talking about St. Louis. I'm the clueless one. I'm Tom Franklin, joined by my buddy Mason, Blues Fan Reacts. And how you doing today, bud?
Not too bad. Right in the middle of the intro, my computer straight up crashed.
Oh, that's
straight
great.
up crashed in the middle of that intro. I just barely joined back.
Well,
it was like terrifying.
It is an interesting start to this episode here. Wags is, as you see, he's not here yet. He is currently indisposed at the moment. Let's just say that. Hopefully we'll get him later on in this episode. Shout out to Rooster Cogburn for watching. What's going on, Rooster? Thanks a lot. Derek, how you doing today? Yesterday's game against the Knights was kind of, yeah, that was I fell asleep after the first period, so I won't have much to say about it because I fell asleep. So hopefully that's not a sign of things to come with the St. Louis Blues. Of course, our big thing this episode, we're going to talk about the Blues going into the playoffs, ass backwards, completely into the playoffs.
Oh, yes.
they're in, and Arizona is not, as I like to remind a certain Arizona fan on Twitter yesterday. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about the whole Tom Wilson New York Rangers fiasco. And I have an excerpt from Bob Plager's excellent book, about his time as a player and kind of how they dealt with things back then. And I felt that was kind of relevant to add to this conversation here.
Absolutely.
And then, speaking of relevant to the conversation, it is our Bare-Knuckle Blues Bracket, as I realized Center Ice Brewery is currently blocking my face at the moment. Yeah. There we go. Trying to get off in my grill.
Professionals here.
Absolutely professional.
Absolutely. And by the way, before we get too deep into it, let's just all say Happy Mother's Day. Let's have a big Happy Mother's Day to everybody. I mean, I know that my mom's watching. I'm sure your mom is watching you right now. I bet she's really proud of you right now. So, I mean, yeah. So, I know my mom's proud of me, and I'm glad that, she hasn't, given up on me yet. 20 years, about to be 21. So I'm glad that, she's been one of my biggest supporters. At first when I started, being on YouTube and being, the person that I am today, I was kind of nervous to, tell my family about it, just because I was like, this is kind of my own thing. But, ever since she found out about that I didn't tell her, somebody else told her. But ever since, I've been doing this, she's been my number one fan. So thank you very much, Mom. And I love you.
By the way, Rooster can't stay today. He is taking his mom to eat for Mother's Day today.
There we go.
Very nice thing for you to do. Hopefully she's not eating chicken because your name's Rooster, and that would be awkward.
A little awkward.
And by the way, your mom checking in. Thanks, Mason. I'm proud of you, and I love you. So there we go. Feeling the love today here. We will try to keep the strip club chatter down to a.
Yes, we will. Just for you, Mom.
Sorry, Mom. This is your day after, and sorry to my mom as well. Unfortunately, she's with us, but I'm sure she's watching wherever she is. So,
of course,
thank you, Mom, for bringing me into this earth and making this possible, essentially.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much for that. Speaking of Center Ice Brewery, they were kind of crowding my space there a little bit earlier on here. I'm used to having 3 guest co-hosts here on the show, so forgive me for that, Wags. But
he died. Remember, we just got word.
Yeah.
We got word 15 minutes before the show. He has unfortunately passed away from a very tragic thumb wrestling accident. So
yeah,
prayers to Wags, prayers to his family. Hopefully he resurrects sometime this episode. But as of right now, he's dead to us. So
it's like the old Simpsons bit. Wags died on the way back to his home planet. So
that's right.
It's so sad.
Where's his home planet? Where is it?
I probably a Chick-fil-A somewhere.
A Chick-fil-A.
Lord knows he lives there because you people won't work fast food anymore. So you have to work like 60-hour weeks. It's strange. But regardless, the Senator Ice $25 giveaway. We are coming down to, of course, the last few games. Next week, we will announce the winner of that. A few of you made your picks as to how many points the Blues would finish at this year. And judging by your picks, it looks like we'll end up in the median somewhere, right in the middle of where your picks were, which means that we have optimists and we have pessimists. Right. At the time that we set up this thing, you and I were definitely pessimists.
We were not.
No. We're both eliminated from this competition. I picked 55 points. You picked 53. The Blues are at 57 points right now, so that's done. Ashley Jones, if she is watching, my old high school classmate, she needs the Blues to lose the next 3 games because the Blues are at 57 points right now, and that's exactly what she picked. And by the way, in case you're wondering, what happens if it ends up like, say the Blues end up with 58 and it's between Ashley and Dan Ferris, who has 59? It's Price is Right rules. So you can't go over, essentially. So Dan Ferris would be over and it would still be Ashley's. So that is our ruling there. The Dan Ferris has 59 points. He needs the Blues to win just 1 or overtime lost 2 games, and he wins. Pork Steak Schmuck on Twitter. I didn't get his real name. We'll just call him.
I love that.
We'll call him Schmuck.
We'll call him Schmuck.
Yeah, Schmuck. He picked 60 points. If the Blues win and have 1 overtime loss, then he wins. He also gets 61 and 62 as well. So he's probably in the catbird seat right now. Guy Benson could still technically win. He had 63 points. Of course, he's a Hawaii Blues fan, our buddy from STL Fan Report. If the Blues win all three, then he wins the Center Ice gift certificate, and he told me he will be in St. Louis later this year. I originally closed it off to non-St. Louisans, but he said he will be in St. Louis, and I would be able to help him out there when he comes in. But it would take a hell of a run by the Blues to get to that point.
Absolutely.
And so let's go ahead and get into the playoff chat here. So the Blues are in. We are in. Woo! Yeah.
Normally if we...
And as Ken Wilson would say,
boo this man.
Whoops, wrong one. Now you're booing me. That's terrible.
Oh, baby! The Blues!
Here we go.
Yeah, I got a new toy. And
He got a new toy. He's having fun.
And I have to remember where it gives me like some sound
labels,
to place things, but they don't have labels, so you have to kind of remember where you put them.
You can put like little label makers on them.
I could, but nah. This is
hard. Okay.
The professionals should know what is
professionals.
Where.
Once again, professional podcast.
Yesterday. Okay, so now guys, you can
boo this man.
Boo me.
Boo.
Yeah. So yes, the Blues are in the playoffs.
Yes, they
are. And I would ask you. I was going to ask Wags if he thought we would ever get to this point, but he's not here. So let's go ahead and Mason, did you ever think we would actually get in the playoffs? Because I sure as hell didn't.
I thought that we would get into the playoffs, but I didn't want them to. That's been my narrative for the last 2 months now. Is just been we're not good enough. Why even bother? We've been what's our 6-0-2 in the last 8.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. I'll take that.
Good.
Not including last night, obviously, but 6-0-2. That's like unbelievable. That kind of proves to me that the Blues can absolutely pull off an upset. They have all of the pieces in the puzzle to be able to, pull off some kind of upset. I bet they could do it. I didn't have a lot of faith for a long time, and rightfully so. They just weren't playing like they deserved any faith from the fan base. But there are a lot of real guys in the Blues fan base that stuck to it till the very end, and I gotta say I applaud you for sticking in for that long, because I absolutely couldn't. I thought that we should go for go for Dylan Gunther, like I've said 1,000 times. But obviously that's not happening. The Blues are in the playoffs now, and like I said, I think all the pieces are there. But a lot of people. Okay, so on the Locked On Blues podcast, or no, it was Two Guys One Cup podcast.
Mm-hmm.
They came out with a tweet that said something to the effect of why they didn't like the Blues in the playoffs at all, and I responded to them and I said the most danger. They said give us a reason to they specifically said give us a reason to believe in the Blues in the playoffs, and I responded the teams with nothing to lose are the most dangerous. And they were kind of like, oh, they got 4 games to lose. What are you talking about? And I'm like, no. Who is going to win this series? Look at this series and tell me who's going to win. And they said Vegas. And I'm like, so we got nothing to lose. We are definitely not the favorites in this. We're not the favorites in this series.
Sure.
We got nothing to lose.
No.
And I think that's when, a lot of teams out there, it was the same way back in 2019. The Blues had nothing to lose there. They already sucked. They just barely scraped into the playoffs.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of, like I said, Blues have nothing to lose. I think they can do it. I think they can.
I think they're going to give Vegas a bigger run than a lot of people think they do. Like, for instance, if you're just a casual fan, say you're watching from Toronto, or you're watching from Montreal or some other market, you want to check in on the Blues, and we're talking about how that they could give Vegas a run in the first round, and you're like, yeah, you're just homers, whatever. And then you look at the NHL standings and you see the Blues technically have lost their last 3. Well, 2 of those were in overtime. Or at least, yeah. And so they still get at least a point out of those. They're still playing very competitive hockey, even against, one of the best, probably the best team in hockey at the very moment, the Vegas Golden Knights.
Oh, yeah.
1 out of 4 points, in this 2-game series. I said last week the Blues needed to make a statement against Vegas. They, again, they only ended up 1 out of 4 points, and the game Saturday night wasn't very good. But it's Vegas. They're the hockey guy on YouTube just named Vegas as his number 1 team in the power rankings in all of hockey. So this is who you are up against. This is the mountain that you have to climb. And it's looking probably very likely it will be Vegas in the first round. I personally think they could push Vegas to 7. I think that's very possible. And that's a nightmare scenario for Vegas or for any team in the playoffs. When you're the number 1 seed, you want to be fresh, as much as you can throughout the playoffs, which, by the way, only 56 regular season games. I mean, these teams should be, yes, we've had to play a kind of a tight packed schedule here a little bit, but they don't have as much wear on them as they do this year. So, you got to wonder if maybe, if you go to 7 games repeatedly in the playoffs, is that necessarily going to hurt you? Maybe, or do you think maybe, with the schedule being only 56 games, there's not as much wear?
Yeah, I think there is a certain fatigue factor there. I mean, not because it's only 56 games, but because those 56 games, especially lately, have been packed tight.
Yeah.
You have the Blues have played 13 games in 26 nights, right? As of right now, it's been ridiculous how many games that any team in this league has played. So that's why the fatigue factor is going to be there. It's not because, they've played 82 games and they want to take it. That's not what it is. It's just the way the season has been structured it's been hard opponents. It's been back to back to back to back to back to back. We saw the Blues play 7 games in a row against Arizona, and they completed that in like 15 days. It was just ridiculous the amount of games that were played. So, I think the Blues are going to definitely be struggling from that fatigue just because we've had a pretty big workload the last, 2 weeks or so. Vegas, not so much. It's there, but it's not as much. But if it was a normal season, it certainly wouldn't be to this extent.
Yeah, absolutely. And and you bring up the Blues as well. They just went through a stretch where they didn't have any more than 1 day off, between the last, I think, what was it, like the last 13?
It's nuts, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. And they still have 3 more left to go here. And knowing what we know about the Blues schedule and just, how they've kind of had to deal with the injury bug this year, the Blues play the LA Kings Monday night. And then the Blues have 2 against Minnesota. They host Minnesota Wednesday and Thursday night, and then that's it. So are you of the belief that maybe it's Husso time for those games, and then you maybe start filtering in your Santinis and your McEachern's and your maybe even bring back Dakota Joshua, maybe giving some of your key players, or maybe players that are just dealing with that nagging injury a break?
Yeah, definitely. You're already in the playoffs. Your seeding is not going to change. You are going to be the 4th overall seed. So that you are. Hasn't Vegas clinched the division or not quite yet? I don't remember, but
not quite
yet. I think we all know it's going to be Vegas in the first round. I think we all know that. But I keep hitting my freaking knee on the desk again. This happens all the time. But no, it's not that it hurts. It's just it shakes the camera. So. No, but this is the time where you start filtering in, like you said, your Santinis, maybe getting Dakota Joshua. He just got back on the taxi squad, which I love. I love Dakota Joshua, and we're going to get to him later on in the episode about something completely different. But Dakota Joshua, I think he could make, if somebody gets injured, I think he could make a valuable playoff player just because he plays that playoff style, the hard hitting, the grinding, all of that. So push comes to shove, I think he could be pretty valuable. And if you get him a little bit more NHL experience before the actual playoffs, regardless whether you need him or not, it's always going to be a good thing, And last podcast, I kind of talked about how I think Husso maybe gets, both starts against Anaheim. And you guys kind of said, no, you don't want Binnington resting that long. I kind of agree with you there for the rest of the season. I think maybe sit Binnington the last game, but I think I think you should play Binnington the last game, but I'd say the next 2, put Husso in for sure.
Yeah, especially against the Kings. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
the Kings.
nothing left to play for here. It's the LA Kings, who the hockey guy actually put as number 30 in the NHL. They're playing that bad lately. And then you have Minnesota. I mean, you want to look. I would say I like that plan of yours, Mason, where you put in Husso the next couple of games, you put in your taxi squad players essentially. Give Parayko a break. I mean, because he still hasn't looked totally 100% since he's come back.
He's looked better, but not 100%.
He's getting better, but maybe with a back. Maybe some rest would do him good. Surely there's other players that are carrying at least one injury around that could use a couple days off. This would be the week to do that. But then you bring them all back the last game, and because you wanna go into the playoffs on the right foot. And and Minnesota, they're a playoff team. They're going to be the number 3 seed. It's possible you see them in the second round. You need to know that you're going to look good against them. And granted, the Blues have played Minnesota very well this year, and that's a matchup that I would like to see in the second round if the Blues were able to get past Vegas. And because there's a lot of people that think that Minnesota can take down Colorado in the first round, and I'm one of those people. Colorado,
yeah, I think so.
Colorado's starting to get their act back together a little bit, but they haven't been looking great the last couple of weeks. And I know it's because they've been dealing with injuries. Like they were without McKinnon Saturday night. He is the straw that stirs that drink. So
yeah,
if he's going to come into the playoffs limping, maybe there's a chance. Minnesota's been playing really good hockey lately, and they've. I'll say this: they've won me over, Mason. I never liked Minnesota style of play. I thought they play a boring game.
Yeah.
They're constantly mediocre. But then this year they've broken out. So
it's just amazing what one young guy can do to your entire roster. It's amazing.
Yeah.
This doesn't happen without Kirill Kaprizov, which is my exclusive reason why he deserves to win the Calder. Because of that. I knew he had a shot at the Calder at the beginning of the season, but after this should be a runaway case. There's no way he's not winning the Calder at this point. What does he have, like 13 goals in the last 13 games? It's just been insane.
It's ridiculous.
So, yeah, it's been nuts. It's amazing. Definitely, the Minnesota style has definitely won me over. And actually, I can see a lot of other teams, adopting this kind of stuff. I can see the Oilers because they have that Kirill Kaprizov and Connor McDavid, who, by the way, just scored his 101st point of the season in game 53.
It's ridiculous. He is.
I'm telling you, he is the best player in NHL history. You cannot tell me otherwise. He is.
Gretzky.
Okay.
Gretzky.
Nope. Better than Gretzky. Not kidding.
Better than Gretzky. Better than Mario.
I think yes. Better. Well. Yes. Better than Mario. No, not Mario. No, probably not him.
No.
But they're in the same. They're definitely in the same canoe kind of thing. They're so just insanely good. But yeah, I could see, I'd have been saying because they have that Kirill Kaprizov and Connor McDavid. I could see them kind of adopting the same. They got the players to do it. I could totally see that. Maybe get a better young goaltender. And I think they're well on the right track for doing something like that. So
absolutely,
I can see a lot of other teams in this league really kind of taking off of the Minnesota style, because I think what Minnesota's problem has been because of their mediocrity, it's because they're just trying to copy too many winning teams. You can't play the LA Kings of 2014 and the Chicago Blackhawks of 2015 at the same time, because they're two totally different teams. But I think that's what Minnesota's trying to do. That's why they sucked.
Totally.
So,
let's get to some comments here. First of all, Chris Shockley, Colton has seen better. He went to the game yesterday, and Parayko was dancing and goofing off before the game, and you don't do that in bad pain.
It's true.
So I think that's quite positive. And then he's shown on the ice that he's getting back to where he was. He's still gonna take a little while, obviously, to kind of get back into the flow of things, but he has looked a lot better lately. So
of course,
definitely. Chris Shockley asking, when can Costin play?
Well, last game of the year,
the very last game of the year. Basically, I tweeted out a scenario where it's like 5 minutes before game time in the last game, and a limo comes screeching into, the Enterprise Center parking lot, and then Klim Kostin steps out, already dressed up, and he's, running out to the ice in his skates. That
takes the Zamboni entrance. The limo screeches up to the Zamboni entrance, and he just like opens the door and it's like, "I'm in, coach. I'm here."
actually, Kostin's got so much moxie, he might just drive the Zamboni on the ice.
He probably would. No, okay, yeah, I can see that.
Nothing's going to stop Klim Kostin, and
the boys got to get a Klim Kostin jersey for sure.
And his moxie will come up later in conversation. I can definitely tell you that this episode here. And
we got a fun episode today, guys. We got a fun one today.
We do. The goal scored off of Sanford. Bennington should have the right to punch his face. Well, he could earn that right.
Yes,
he could earn that right in our tournament that we're starting today. The Bare-Knuckle Blues Bracket will get you connected to that. Derek also pointing out, we like to point out Sanford nearly kicked in a puck against us in the finals on Friday.
You know what I did when I saw that? I saw that puck deflect off of a Bennington barely save. I didn't watch I like immediately stood up, I curled in a ball, and I screamed. I was like, "Oh my God, it was inches. It was inches away from being in." And we obviously wouldn't get a point because it would have been the winning goal.
Yeah, we need this tournament that's coming up. Like, we really do. And before we get to that, though, another thing that inspired that tournament, the Tom Wilson and New York Rangers fiasco and the question over like rough plays. So in case you've been sleeping under a rock, Tom Wilson basically roughed up Artemi Panarin in a behind the goal scrum. This after Panarin jumped on his back, by the way, like a freaking honey badger. And so everyone and their mother on Twitter is going after Tom Wilson because it's Tom Wilson. He's got a reputation for this sort of thing. Here he goes again, roughing up poor Artemi Panarin. No one likes to point out that it was Panarin that jumped on his back first, but regardless, so we have that fiasco, and he only gets a $5,000 fine, the maximum allowed under the CBA. And then so what happens from here is the New York Rangers put out a statement basically slamming George Peros for not, doing more, on Tom Wilson, like suspending him maybe, or giving, maybe he can't give him a bigger fine than $5,000, but he can take some game checks away from him. That adds up. Yeah. So that statement comes out right after that. John Davidson, former St. Louis Blue John Davidson, by the way, and former, I believe he was an announcer here for a little while. He got fired as president of the New York Rangers, along with the GM right after that. And the reasons for that are still kind of unclear. And then the NHL, remember, they only fined Tom Wilson $5,000. They fined the New York Rangers $250 million, or no, almost not. I'm $250,000, and everyone on the internet was like, "Boo this man!" towards Gary Bettman.
Unbelievable.
And so here's okay. Oh, there's winners and losers here, obviously. As I said, Tom Wilson had Panarin on his back. Let's go back to that. Panarin was on his back. Wilson chucks him down. He doesn't have time, or he doesn't know who jumped on his back, but someone was jumping on your back. Would you like it if someone jumped on your back, without notice? No.
No, I would have put the next guy wearing an opposing jersey on the ground. That's what I would have done.
And Wilson put Panarin on the ground.
Did.
And starts
albeit very illegally, albeit very illegally, but he did.
Red. Wilson is seeing red at this point. And yes, he does rough up Panarin. And given Wilson's history, I thought a game or two would have been appropriate.
2 games.
2 games would have been fine. I would have been okay with 1. Just something, because again, repeat offender. He did go overboard with Panarin. And
he went overboard with Buchnevich as well in the crease. You got to mention that as well. I think that's why he deserves 2, 1 for each incident. So.
Exactly. But it would send a message, that the NHL players' safety is governing this game. A violent and rough play, and that things like that won't go unpunished. And the fact, and pretty much Tom Wilson got away with that unpunished. which is unfortunate.
It's stupid. You know, the reason why I was so incensed over the $5,000 only is because Sammy Blay had unintentional head contact in the first game of the season and got 2, which is equivalent to $25,000.
Yeah.
Tom Wilson nearly kills Panarin, and he cross-checks Buchnevich on the back of the neck in the crease when he is in a prone position. He only gets 5,000. It's bullshit. I'm sorry. It is.
Yeah. Derek pointed out, Tim and friends pointed out that Wilson has taken out Sonny, Robert Thomas, Sammy Blay. Maybe COVID divisions aren't such a bad thing. We need to go back to the old divisions. As much as this West Division thing has been interesting, playing all these California teams, I need Chicago back in my life.
I need Chicago. I need it
back in my life. I need Dallas back in my life. No, we need to go back to the Central.
I need the goalie chants. I need to chant the Chicago goalie. It's not going to be Crawford anymore, which sucks.
It's the inconsistent message here that bugs me the most from player safety, because you have this happen. You mentioned the Buchnevich thing. Have you already forgotten about Mark Stone and Tyler Bozak? It's lucky Tyler Bozak's not in the 3rd grade right now, because of, how hard his head bounced off the ice from that hit. And it was an unnecessary hit. It was a cheap shot.
It was stupid.
It was a cheap shot. It was a dirty hit. Plain and simple. And yes, the players did enforce that afterwards. I remember Stone got into a fight at the game after. It was Justin Falk, I think, that took him on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So who by the way is in our Bare-Knuckle tournament, by the way. And it kind of got me to thinking, just of how the if the player safety isn't going to step in on these issues, do we need to resurrect the enforcers to police the game properly themselves?
Yes.
And I've been reading Bob Plager's excellent book with Tom Wheatley. And he has a chapter in there. The way Plager reads it, by the way, it almost reads like a Reader's Digest almost. You got very short chapters that are just very nice for if you just want to, read a couple pages and then, move on. One of the chapters is called A Knee for a Knee. And this is Bob Plager's encounter with a player named Derek Sanderson. My second season in St. Louis, I got my knee operated on because of Derek Sanderson. We were playing the Bruins, and it was near the end of the game. The whistle blew, the play was over, and I relaxed. Derek stuck his knee out, and he got me, and it was bad. It was a dirty hit, and he got away with it. No penalty. I got up and skated back to the bench. There was pain, but nothing on my face. I didn't want him to know he hurt me. When the game was over, I got on the trainer's table, and they said the ligaments were torn right off the kneecap. They wanted to operate that night, but they waited until the next day, which was Thanksgiving. After the game, I was on crutches, and I was going out to my car. The bus with the Bruins drove by. Bad timing. A window opened, and Sanderson yelled out, "How's the knee, Bob?" That's what hurt the most. Keep in mind, there was nothing such as NHL player safety back in this time period. This was early 70s. That's what hurt the most, that he knew he hurt me. I yelled back, "Your time will come." I had put a lot of players out of the game with hits, and a lot had been operated on, but I never felt bad because they were clean hits. That was part of the game. This was different. I came back late in the season, the first time we played Boston. Every time I skated past Sanderson, I said, "I owe you. I'm going to get you. I owe you," end quote. It was the first game, so he expected to get hit. Everybody expected him to get hit. But when I got him, it was going to be at the right time, and it was going to be a bad one. I knew he was watching me that night. It really affected his play. He was doing things like slowing down when he went into the corners with me. So I didn't do anything to him the first few times we played. I'd skate past him and say, "It could be tonight, but it won't be pretty." I always thought I owned him because he'd be watching me. His mind was on me. I was in no hurry, but I was going to get him. Then one day I hit Derek with a hip check, the famous Bob Plager hip check, and he went up and over me. He got his knee hurt, and he was operated on. When he finally came back, he was smiling. He said, "I guess we're even now." I said, "Derek, my hit was a clean one. Yours was dirty. I'm still going to get you, and you'll know it, and it won't be pretty." This went on for some years, even after he got traded to the Rangers. Then we were playing New York, and he jumped Claude LaRose and fought him. We collided by our bench, and I grabbed Derek. I held him, and I said, "It could be now." He said, "You've been saying that for years. I don't think you've got the guts." I said, "Well," and I punched him in the face. I proceeded to pound him good. Nobody came to help him. Usually when a guy's getting beat up, somebody's going to jump in. You don't want to see a teammate get beat like that. He took a lot of punches, and he had enough to skate off the ice and hold his hand up like he won. That was Bob Plager, and that's how he dealt with the Tom Wilson of his era, Derek Sanderson. He got in his head. And there was no... And this affected Derek Sanderson's play, at least whenever he was on the same ice as Bob Plager, where he wasn't headhunting. He wasn't going after anyone's knee. He was being policed by Bob Plager. We don't have that in the NHL anymore. Yes, every now and then you'll see, a player get hit on the boards and then another linemate will jump in and start scrapping. But these aren't your typical enforcers. You're standing up for your teammate, which is great, but are you really enforcing the game? No, you're not. You're just reacting and you're retaliating, but you don't have a Tony Twist or a Bob Plager on the ice to help enforce things for you. You do have Kyle Clifford, who can come in occasionally, but it's just like the Ryan Reeveses and the Tom Wilsons of the game are just going away, and this is what we are left with. Instead of the players enforcing their own code, their own players, we are relying on NHL players' safety, which is inconsistent, and is more than happy to find a team $250,000 because they dared speak out against your own dogma than going after a player who has repeatedly hurt players.
It's not a department. That's a communist government.
Essentially, it is a terrible system. And another thing I don't get, we had some, internet edgelords. That's my music for them. Some internet edgelords, coming out and saying, well, why are you complaining? A team, complains against the league and you're expecting them to not get fined. That's not the issue here. That is absolutely not the issue here. And I wonder if these people are maybe trying to get an NHL job someday and they don't want to, come out against the NHL, or if it's just, that Canadian, friendly culture, that they have up there where they don't want to offend anyone. I don't understand why it's so wrong to come out against these type of incidents and not just take it as, oh, well, this is what they always do, Mason.
Yeah, well, the underlying issue is that player safety was in the wrong here. That's the issue. They were in the wrong, and the New York Rangers said, hey, listen, our star player's out for the season because of your guys' incompetence. All right? You guys were wrong. And then the department's like, we're never wrong. 250,000. It's stupid.
It is. It is incredibly stupid. And it's
a fascist government. The freaking player safety.
If you can't challenge injustice, and if you can't police, your own players on the ice, then what are you left with? You're not left with anything except a dangerous situation where, the players nowadays, it's a lot different game than it was in the 70s and 80s. Players aren't groomed to be fighters and bangers and enforcers.
It's a speed-based game now. That's just not where the game is heading, unfortunately.
But but still, if it's the NHL's and the hockey world's goal to literally train the enforcer out of these players, you're still going to have the occasional Tom Wilson that comes up and try his dirty crap. You're still going to have, Brad Marchand out there trying to be a pest. I don't think.
No. What's going to happen is play the game of hockey is at least the way that the USA hockey system is happening right now is they're taking away body checking at younger levels, which is a whole nother tangent. I hate that, but. Because it doesn't teach the kids to hit properly. It's just so you're going to get more injuries. But what's going to happen is because the whole league, from the developmental level is taking away enforcers. They're like, hey, this isn't needed because this is dirty play if you're an enforcer. If you're an enforcer, you're not a dirty player. But what's going to happen is because there are no enforcers, the dirty players are going to come out of the woodwork because there's nobody to teach them a lesson. That's what's going to happen. We are going to get, by actively taking away the enforcer role in the NHL at a developmental level, the players like the Tom Wilsons and the players like the Brad Marchands and the players like like the Nazem Kadris. They're going to come out of the woodwork and they're going to just be going all night on the ice doing stupid shit. And when they do stupid shit, players get hurt, and nobody's going to teach them the lesson because player safety's not doing their fucking job. The refs aren't doing their fucking job.
Nope.
And worst of all, the other team isn't telling him like, hey, this is messed up. I'm going to drop the gloves and fight you immediately after. We saw that when Tyler Bozak got injured. Falk was the only player who stepped up, and the next time Mark Stone comes into our building, he scores 2 goals!
And is untouched.
And is untouched for the entire game. It's not right. The enforcer role needs to be brought back into hockey. It has to.
I mean, I get the good intentions, by, trying to, make the game, not as violent. Obviously it makes the game more marketable and all that, fun stuff. But, it does lead to unintended consequences like this. Yes. And it's just if you're in a league where running a league where the most you can fine a player is $5,000 and fine a team $250,000 for speaking out against that. Right. You've got it completely ass backwards. $5,000. Tom Wilson probably earns that in a shift. So you're finding him one shift. You're not even finding him a game's wages. It's a shift. The guy makes over $5 million.
I bet he spent more at Olive Garden with Tony D'Angelo than he freaking got fined there. Like it's so stupid.
To be a fly on the table for that conversation. Jeez, that's a whole nother story there. So yeah, it's they need to figure out a solution, and player safety ain't it. And I'd say bring back the enforcer.
And hey, two player safety's credit, all right, they have cracked down. A lot. They're doing it at a pretty extreme level right now. They're finding freaking everything and suspending freaking everything. But I'd rather have that. I'd almost rather have that than nothing happening. Okay, yeah. I'm glad that players are being fined more now and everyone's like, no, this is a stupid thing to be fined for. But at least they're fining people for doing borderline stuff. That Pat Maroon was a bunch of nonsense. But it's at least they're fining people, and they're kind of at least they're semi realizing that okay, we kind of need to get a grip on this. So if you fine everything for the next couple weeks or so, then players are going to learn like, oh, okay, we're not going to get away with this no more. So
yeah. By the way, Maroon just got suspended.
Yes, for one game.
Yeah, for one
game. Because whoever he was fighting after the whistle, I don't even remember his freaking name, but apparently he called him Fat Pat.
Yeah, possibly. And then as Chris points out, hell, what's going to happen is Wilson himself will get hurt someday. Kind of the situation with what's his name in Vancouver. Is he talking about Matt Cook? I think maybe he's talking about that, or Brashear, or I forget. But all this has gotten us in a fighting mood, Mason. And what better way What better way to channel our aggression than with a fighting tournament? Ladies and gentlemen, it is the Bare-Knuckle Blues Bracket.
Yeah!
Imagine
very dramatic.
You're in your favorite seat at Enterprise Center. The lights go out. The fans roar as the spotlight shines on center ice. You can see there is now a cage surrounding center ice with an opening towards the side of the rink where the Zamboni comes out. Soon, some rock music like this plays, and you see a player skate out of the Zamboni entrance. His gloves are already off. He gets his equipment checked by a ref near the circle gone, as we're calling it, and then he skates in. Same thing for the next player. Finally, the music stops. The players stand across the circle gone from each other. The ref announces the winner gets to beat up Zach Sanford in practice.
Woo!
And that ref, Tony Twist, yells, "Let's get it on!" And the players have themselves a good old hockey fight. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Bare-Knuckle Blues Bracket. So what is the Bare-Knuckle Blues Bracket? We talked last week about who the toughest current blue is. This was even before the whole Tom Wilson thing came about. And we had a few ideas from the players to the setting that I just dramatically laid out for you with some.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I think you got a career in that.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see about that. If anyone wants to hire me, let me know. The matchups for this contest were actually made by you, Mason.
Yes.
I tweaked one of them because I wanted to see a
I
goalie
saw.
fight.
I
So
saw.
that was the only real change. Do not read too much into where the players are on the bracket. In fact, I'll go ahead and bring that up for you right now. So
Mike Wazowski.
So we have a total of 32 players in this bracket because there have been at least 32 players that have played this year for the Blues. And, you know, they each got their own individual matchups here as I'm scrolling down and showing you all 16 matches. There will be one winner. I'll go ahead and scroll back up to the top here. And let's go ahead here and tell you what we're going to do here. So, of course, we wanted Wags here to kind of help pick the winners here, but
yeah, because my logic was, you know, there's three of us, you know, majority moves on kind of thing. But I guess we're gonna need I can't be Mike Wazowski anymore. Now our thing is you know, now let's have the viewers decide. Now we got a couple people in here, so let's use you guys as the tiebreaker here. So
I think what we're gonna do, and we'll definitely take your input here if you're watching live on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube rather, or Twitter. We do post this on Twitter as well.
Yeah.
But I think what we're gonna do now is we'll make our picks here as you know, just us two. And then we're also going to do polls during the week for each matchup as well, because I want to see what Blues Nation thinks of these matchups. Monday through Thursday, we'll post 4 polls a day on each matchup to see what you think. And then we'll do it again next week for the round of 16 and then, you know, the round of 8. And then we'll probably, then we'll do the semis and finals and all that stuff. So why now? Yeah. Well, why are we doing this now? I mean, the Blues are still playing hockey. Well, it is. Well, yeah, and to your point, it's the playoffs are coming up here, but there's going to be a little bit of a lull, you know, because the Canucks still have to finish out their schedule. The Blues finish up on Thursday. It might still be a week or two before the playoffs even start. So we have to fill with some sort of content. And I thought, hey, let's have some fun. Let's figure out who would win a UFC style tournament. You know, if it were St. Louis Blues players and the winner gets to beat up Zach Sanford. Now,
absolutely.
Now, hypothetically, Zach Sanford is in this tournament, so he could hypothetically
beat up himself.
He could beat himself up, which
interesting.
Which would be interesting to see. It'd be like Jim Carrey in the movie Liar Liar. You know,
that'd be very interesting. By the way, credit to Tom, by the way, for the epic Bare-Knuckle Blues Bracket name. That was so freaking.
Actually, that was
sick.
Wags. Wags.
Was that Wags? Oh, sorry, Wags.
Yeah, and I'm sure
credit to whoever did. It wasn't me. I'm not that creative.
I'm sure he was very excited to be here to help.
I guess so.
Pick the winners, but something came up, I guess.
It's okay. If he has a problem, no, he died in a stump wrestling accident. But no, if he has a problem, he could take it up with that in the next episode.
Exactly. We'll have him back next week. We'll give him a pass. So here are the matchups here. So first matchup here is Vladimir Tarasenko versus Steven Santini. And let's go ahead and do
number stealer.
Let's go ahead and do the tail of the tape here. So you may be surprised to know Vladimir Tarasenko has been in 3 NHL fights, and he has a 3-0 hockey fights record. This is where I'm getting all that information from, by the way. Voters picked that he won all 3 fights. Tarasenko has 388 hits in 531 NHL games, so he averages 0.73 hits per game. He stands at 6 foot, 225 pounds, and he comes from a remote part of Russia.
Yes,
Steven Santini,
which has the toughest sons of bitches.
Oh yeah, like
NHL history, middle of nowhere Russia. Of course.
I mean, remember that mountain that Rocky climbed up with before he fought Drago. I mean, that's basically Tarasenko's backyard.
That's where Tarasenko left. Yeah, that's where he lived.
Essentially, and he's taken on Steven Santini. He has had 2 NHL fights and 3 in the minors or juniors. He has an 0-2 NHL record according to Hockey Fights. 281 hits in 117 NHL games. So he likes to throw the body. He has 2.4 hits per game. He stands at 6'2" and weighs 205 pounds. So he's 2 inches taller, but is 20 pounds lighter. So Tarasenko versus Santini. This is a matchup that I don't think
it's close.
I just gave you some numbers for Santini. has not proven himself to be a fighter.
No.
I mean, it's not that Tarasenko is exactly a fighter either, but he can hold his own, and he's got a nice sturdy build, and he's not unwilling to throw the body. So I would say edge goes to Tarasenko.
Oh yeah. Tarasenko definitely gets the edge, mostly because what'll happen is Tarasenko will go into the ring and I'll whisper, "Hey, Steven Santini's a stealer. He stole my number," and then Tarasenko's like, "Oh no, he didn't!" And then beat him, beat Mr. Number Stealer. By Steven Santini will be called. Will definitely be called. The Steven. He'll be called Number Stealer on here from now on. So.
Right. So we'll give Tarasenko the win here. There's already 2 votes to 0. We'll still ask the our Twitter followers at Bluenotes Pod.
It sounds like everybody in the chat here is more intent on Vladdy as well.
Chris Shockey's definitely pro Vladdy there. Our next matchup has Nathan Walker, the Aussie Ranger, Nathan Walker, taking on Ryan O'Reilly. This one is going to surprise some people, maybe. First of all, Walker has 1 NHL fight. He lost to Andrew Shaw. He has 23 fights in the minors and juniors combined. This guy is ornery. 18 hits, 10 NHL games, almost 2 hits per game, 1.8. He does stand 5'9", 186 pounds, and that 5'9" might be generous. He's taking on Ryan O'Reilly. 0 fights. He is also a perennial Lady Bing candidate.
Yes.
Has 370 hits in 857 games. That's less than half a hit per game. He does stand 6'1", 216 pounds. I love O'Reilly. He is a phenomenal player. I've never known him to be an especially physical player, whereas Walker has moxie.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to go with Walker on this one.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm going Walker. I love you, Captain O'Reilly. I absolutely do. But, man, no, we got to go Walker here. I mean, he is an odd. He brings a lot in his generous 5'9" stature. He certainly has a lot of gumption, as Darren Pang would say. So, yeah, I'd go with Walker on this one for sure as well.
Plus, he comes from Australia, where everything in Australia is trying to kill you. So,
it's true.
It's a very inhospitable place, for like 90% of the landmass. So, we'll give the Duke to Walker there. Yeah. Our next matchup, Braden Shen versus Jacob Delarose. And here we come across, first of all, I'm wearing a Shen jersey today for a reason, and that is because I like him in this tournament. Braden Shen has 28 NHL fights. 28. You don't think that at first when you think Braden Shen, but he's
had 4 this year. Hasn't he had 4 this year?
It's been 4 this year, including those 2 at the opening face-off, after Plager died. Ryan Hartman and Coleslaw from Vegas. But this year, actually for his career, Shen has a 14-14 record. So respectable. So he's respectable. He can hold his own. He has 1,534 hits in 711 games. That is a 2.16 hit per game average. So he's a physical player. He stands 6'1" and a sturdy 200 pounds. He takes on Jacob Delarose, who has 2 NHL fights, has an 0-2 record. He does love to throw the body, 474 hits in 212 games for a 2.24 hits per game average. And he's a bigger guy. He's 6'3", 215 pounds. So he does have 2 inches and about 15 pounds on Braden Shen. But when I see Braden Shen drop the gloves, Mason, I always think of a honey badger with him because that's kind of his style. He doesn't mess around. He just starts wailing. And I don't know. I don't know if that's the preferred hockey fighting tactic, but you know what? It works for him.
Hey, it works. I mean, I think the edge obviously goes to Braden Shen in this one. I'm sure that we can both agree on that.
Yeah.
But I think 14 wins and 28 fights and 14. That's respectable. He knows how to fight. It comes down to experience here. It doesn't matter that De La Rose is so much bigger. I mean, Ryan O'Reilly's so much bigger than Nathan Walker. That doesn't really matter. It's a matter of how it's a matter of how much bite you got. And I think Braden Shen's got a lot of bite.
He really does. He really does. So we're going to go ahead and go with Braden Shen there. So our next matchup here, and one that might be surprising for a couple of reasons. Jaden Schwartz takes on Klim Kostin. We were talking about veteran experience here.
That's a good one.
Obviously, Schwartz has that, but Jaden Schwartz, not the most physical player. He's had one fight in his career, and Christopher Steig beat him up in 2013. And I think that was pretty much it for Jaden's fighting career. He does have 450 hits in 558 games. He averages about 0.8 of a hit per game. He stands 5'10" and 190 pounds. He takes on Klim Kostin, who did have one preseason fight in 2018, and he beat up Devin Shore. He has a 4-0 record in the AHL in 4 fights. And limited NHL experience, but he is 6'3", 212 pounds of pure Russian hate.
Oh yeah.
He stands 5 foot taller than Jaden Schwartz. He has 22 pounds on Jaden Schwartz, and Jaden Schwartz, as we established, is not a fighter. He's a solid 2-way player. We love Jaden Schwartz, but in a cage against Klim Kostin,
not close.
This doesn't escape the first round.
Knocked out one punch. Yeah, one punch. It's a one punch bout right here. It's one, maybe two. Jaden Schwartz doesn't get a single punch on Klim Kostin. There's no way. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Schwartz. I love you. We all love you, but no.
So we've already established that our matchups next week will be Vladimir Tarasenko versus Walker Aussie Ranger, and then Braden Shen against Klim Shady next week. That's gonna be
right.
That's gonna be
good.
That might be Shen's toughest matchup coming out of this.
I think so too.
This region here. I'm really curious what people think of that one. Let's go ahead and go down to our next 4 matchups here. If you're watching on YouTube and Facebook, our next matchup is Tyler Bozak versus Dakila Joshua. And Tyler Bozak he has had one NHL fight. He lost to some guy named Corey Ruedel in 2013. He is a physical player.
He's a Blackhawks player.
Yeah, Blackhawks back in the day. 699 hits in 762 games, basically just under a hit per game, which is fine. 6'1", 199 pounds, taking on Dakota Joshua, who has had one fight in the NHL, and he beat up Coleslaw in Vegas.
Oh yeah,
that was an epic fight. That was a beatdown. Joshua did have one fight in the minors. He beat up Dennis Gilbert last year, who I think at the time was a Blackhawks prospect, and he was traded in the offseason in the Brendan Saad deal.
And worthy of mention with Dakila.
Yeah,
right before he fought Coleslaw, which is his name. It's not Coleslaw, it's Coleslaw.
Yes.
Right before, he laid a massive hit on Ryan Reeves.
He did.
And how many people have the balls to hit Ryan Reeves? Very few people in this league.
Here's why I love Ryan Reeves over Tom Wilson. Tom Wilson would have probably, need Dakota Joshua later in the game or done something dirty. Reeves, on the other hand, he kind of had a look of respect. Yes, it's like he realized he got knocked on his ass legit. And he was kind of looking up, it's like, damn, who hit me? And it was like, and it was Dakota, and Reeves never retaliated. It was a good, clean hit. Reeves should have had his head up.
Absolutely.
But as far as Dakota Joshua's fighting acumen, that's his only NHL fight so far. And I mentioned he beat up Dennis Gilbert. Joshua's a very physical player. One of those 19 hits that he's had in 11 NHL games was against Reeves, so he has a 1.73 hits per game average. He's 6'2", 199 pounds, so basically they're even on weight. They have, and Joshua has an inch positive here. So
Dakila.
Yeah. Tyler's never struck me as
Tyler's not a physical guy. No. Joshua is the physical aspect. He came into the league and he was hit. He was good. Tyler Bozak's never been that guy.
Yeah, Bozak's not going to shy away, but he's not. He's not going to win. He's not a Dakila, basically.
Right.
He's not a killer like Dakila Joshua. So
that's right.
Dakila advances.
Hell yeah.
Alrighty, our next matchup, and I really wonder why you chose this matchup. Honestly, I want to because this is like the pillow fight of the.
This is a pillow fight. Yeah, this is totally a pillow.
Mike Hoffman.
This is a girl fight. This is
this is a girl's
This is a cat fight. This is a cat fight.
Although maybe not as close as you think. Mike Hoffman versus Carl Gunnarsson. Hoffman has one fight in the QMJHL. There's like no details on it on Hockey Fights. Hoffman is a sissy. He has 265 hits and 542 games played, about half a hit per game. 6 foot, 180 pounds. He's taking on Carl Gunnarsson, who, as we all know, is made of glass. He's basically the Glass Joe of punch.
Worthy you mentioned.
Yes. But he does have 2 NHL fights. He lost both of them. He throws the body, 700 hits and 629 games played. Like, I've never known him as like a real like guy to be feared, but he'll get in the corners and muck. 6'2", 198 pounds. So he has 2 inches on Hoffman and 18 pounds, and basically probably a whole lot more moxie than Hoffman does. I mean, Hoffman's never been a physical player, I would say, provided Gunnar doesn't like injure his hand punching Hoffman, I would say Gunnar takes this one.
Yeah, how tall is Gunnarsson?
Gunnar is 6'2", 190.
Oh yeah, no, okay, yeah,
he's got 2 inches on Mike.
All right, yeah, then that's what I would say. This one comes down to who's the taller guy,
and assuming this,
in my opinion.
And if he's trying to play flow like a butterfly, sting like a bee against Hoffman, hopefully he doesn't like roll his ankle or something, because we always have to worry about that with Gunnar. But we'll give him the win here, and we'll make him the sacrificial lamb for Dakota next week.
Sacrificial.
Yeah. I someone. I
love that.
One of these two is going to get absolutely butchered next round.
Oh yes, no, for sure.
Bozak would have probably had his way with either one of these guys. All right, so that was our teddy bear matchup of the first round. Yeah, it's going to be bad.
Oh no!
But you know what? That'll make the fans happy. You got to have at least one absolute, ass kicking in the tournament.
Yes, of course.
So here we go. We have Oscar Sundqvist taking on David Perron. This is an interesting matchup. Sundqvist hasn't fought in the NHL. He does have one AHL fight where he lost to Sean Corrali. As we know, Oscar's physical, 289 hits, 229 games played, so about 1.25
about a one,
hits per game. 6'3", 209 pounds, so good size. He takes on David Perron, who does have 2 NHL fights. He has a 1-0-1 record according to Hockey Fights. He drew against Bobby Ryan in the early 2010s. I actually think it was like 2000. No, it was early 2010s on that one. Perron, more physical than you think. 1,104 hits and 903 games played. So he has right at about 1.25 hits per game himself. Mm-hmm. He's 6 foot, 200 pounds. And it's funny, Mason. I got a little bit of a dumb moment myself. So when we were initially talking about who was going to be in this tournament, we were initially talking about doing just like 8 players. Yeah, and I suggested Sundqvist as one of them. Because when you think Oscar Sundqvist, you think okay, he's this he's a moxie guy. He plays a 2-way game. He's solid defensively and he likes to hit. I never thought that he's not a fighter. I mean, and you wonder if and you still kind of wonder if he has nightmares with Tom Wilson.
Yeah, I think he does.
I mean, Wilson did try to kill him a couple of times.
Well, I mean, credit to him. After all, I haven't seen him skate with his head down in the neutral zone since that. So
that is called learning your lesson.
That's right.
But in terms, we were talking a little bit earlier about just veteran presence, and David Perron's definitely a veteran at this point. Given that Perron is also that he's still the player that like gives you an occasional bad penalty that just drives you nuts. So I think there's a little bit of dirty in David Perron.
Yeah.
I think in a cage, I think Perron would be, I think I can see Sundqvist being a kind of a straightforward brawler type, but Perron's got technique. I think
it's true,
and I think he's got a nasty streak to him that Oscar doesn't quite have. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give the edge to Perron.
I actually had to think about this one. This one's kind of a difficult one. I mean, you're kind of right that he is kind of the dirty one. He can bring a little bit of dirt into it, but at the same time, Oscar Sundqvist is 6'3".
So he's got the reach advantage and the size advantage.
He does. Who did David? Do we know who Perron fought in the win or?
I can check that for you here real quick. Just a quick check of
because that's a pretty big, yeah. Because if he tied Bobby Ryan's pretty skilled at fighting.
Yeah, but
Sean Corrali is very skilled at fighting, so that's not surprising that he lost. That Sundqvist lost that one.
Ron. David Perron's other fight was against Danny Ehrman.
I have no idea what that is.
Up in Minnesota Wild. Danny Ehrman. Let's see if we can look him up here. Danny Ehrman. Look up his hockey DB here. So Ehrman played 2 games in the NHL for the Minnesota Wild. And was considered more of just looking at his stats here in the AHL, and then he played overseas. Was like a 17 to 25 goal scorer. I mean, wasn't really a big penalty guy. So I think he was probably a kid looking to make a statement. And
gotcha. I'm gonna say Oscar Sundqvist in this one. I'm gonna say just because it's a 3-inch difference. That's really what it comes down to. It's a 3. That's a big difference when you're throwing punches like that. It's big, and because really neither of these two guys are particularly skilled at fighting. I think that's really what it's going to come down to. I mean, it's a 10-pound difference, a 2-inch difference. I'm going to go Sundqvist on this one actually.
Mason, it's Mother's Day. And we were going to be nice and PG rated for your mom here, and you're talking about how 3 inches makes a difference. I mean, dude, bruh, we talked about this.
You're really gonna do that?
I did it. I went there, and edgy, so edgy,
really big. God.
So edgy. All right. So we will need the voters to decide this one. David,
we'll need the voter to decide. So I think what we should do is let's see. Well, Chris says Sunny. So I think what we should do is we should put a poll on Bluenotes right now.
Okay.
And then at the end of the episode, review it and see what votes it got. So who would win in a fight, Sundqvist or Perron?
I can do that. Let's see here.
And then you should probably include their if there's enough space you do their jersey numbers and then their height, weight, and then fight records.
All right, so let's go ahead.
I think you can fit all that.
All right. While we talk about our next matchup, I will go ahead and get that posted here. Let me just log into that particular account. And all right, let's go into our next matchup right now here while I dilly-dally. It is Zach Sanford, the man that this tournament, the prize of the tournament, or at least his faces will be anyway, taking on a healthy Alex Steen. We are assuming that Alex Steen is healthy for this tournament. This one could be kind of a controversial one as well, just looking at the tail of the tape here. Sanford does have 2 NHL fights. And he has a 1-1 record on hockey fights. He had 3 in the juniors. He has 241 hits in 206 games, so a 1.17 hits per game average. So he does throw the body occasionally, and he does have the size advantage. 6'4".
Right, but at 207, that kind of makes him a stick. He's a bit of a stick.
A little
he doesn't
wiry.
have a lot of girth on him. He doesn't have a lot of big muscle girth on him, but he does. Shush! Hush mouth! I'm going to get a call after this. I'm going to. You are going
to get sent to your room, mister.
I'm going to get sent to my room. That's exactly right. He's a very wiry guy. So that's why I don't think, the 6'4" is really a big thing. I mean, it's a big thing when it's, a 2-inch difference in 10 pounds, but when it's like a 6'4" and then your opponent is heavier than you, I don't think there's much of an advantage in that. And for that, I'm going to actually it's not because I hate Zach Sanford, because I don't hate Zach Sanford. Let me clarify that. I don't want him on the Blues. That doesn't mean I hate him.
True.
I think Alex Dean has the edge here. I do.
Alex Dean does have 2 NHL fights. He also has a 1-1 record. Not as big of a hitter as Sanford is, about half a hit per game, and he's 6 foot, 211 pounds. But as we all know, Steen's a tough guy.
Yes.
Steen is tough. He is, the kind of guy that brings his lunch pail to work every day and gets to work. Whereas, as we know, Sanford can be flaky. He can be very up and down to the point of madness. By the way, what is it with the Blues and having 6'4" forwards that are absolute pansies? I mean, because basically Sanford's carrying the tradition that Patrick Berglund, established.
Kinda. At least Berglund could score on occasion.
Not really.
On occasion.
Sanford, I think, is a better scorer than Berglund was.
Possibly.
I mean, yeah, it was, but yeah, that's not a look. Sanford's out of this tournament. Okay, Steen wins. Assuming
Steve wins.
Assuming he's healthy. So
yeah.
All right. So I still need to make that Twitter poll, by the way. But let's go.
It's all good. While you do that, I will talk about the next one while you do that, just so you can focus on that. Right. So the next one, it's looking like to be Mr. Vince Dunn, and it's looking like it's to be Mr. Jordan Kyrou. I'm sure that I think this is a runaway because Vince Dunn, obviously 2 NHL fights, 1-1 record. He kicked the snot out of Drake Caggiula this season. That was amazing. Or no, last season, which was amazing, and I love to see it. But, he's had 3 AHL fights, 4 junior fights, including with the Chicago Wolves. One that was literally in the locker room or was like at the entrance of a locker room. He absolutely kicked the snot out of, wasn't that Drake Caggiula as well? Or I don't even remember who that was, but it was somebody.
I think it was Caggiula.
It was Caggiula again. Dang, it's so funny. So, and then Mr. Vince Dunn's taking on Mr. Jordan Kyrou, who is a tiny 6 foot 175, and he used to be 155 last year. Yeah, he put on so much weight, but 6 foot 203. This is a runaway. I think me and Tom could both agree on this. I mean, if we look at Vince Dunn, 163 hits in 267 games, that is 0.61 hits a game. And looking at Jordan Kyrou, that is 17 hits in 96, which is 0.18.
Look,
0.18, just under a fifth of a hit every single game. He does not do it. So.
Look, Vince Dunn, since he was a teenager, has dropped the gloves almost 10 times. And he's proven that he can hold himself up in a fight. I mean, Drake Caggiula can probably tell you that. Dunn's not the biggest, body thrower, but he doesn't shy away from contact either. That's a fair way to describe his game. Kyrou, again, just the guy that he's just not a physical guy at all. Absolutely not. Doesn't fight, doesn't hit. And, again, last year he was probably 155 pounds soaking wet. They probably had him wear, a sweatshirt and sweatpants into the jacuzzi and then have him stand on a scale with all that water still, lapping off of his clothing. So yeah, Kyrou, I'm sorry. I love you, Kyrou, but in a cage fight, no chance.
No chance.
Not against Vince Dunn and not against probably most of this lineup here. In fact, I would say Mike Hoffman probably would beat you up, and that's pretty sad because it's Mike
that's
Hoffman.
about the only guy who could beat you up.
Just about. Yep. Although there is one guy coming up that I think might be even softer than Kyrou. We'll talk about him when we get there. About him. But next up here, we got this interesting matchup here. Barbashev versus Blais.
Both of these guys got some snarl.
They one of them in particular loves to hit. Barbashev has 2 NHL fights. He has a 1-0-1 record on hockey fights. He did fight once in the minors, 3 in the Q. Has 379 hits in 267 games. He averages just under a hit and a half per game. Mm-hmm. He stands 6 foot, 187 pounds, which I thought was surprising. I thought he was a little bigger than that, but
he's a little guy.
Yeah. He's taking on Sammy Blais, who has no NHL fights, did have 1 fight in the AHL, 1 in the Q. Here is what sways this far over for Blay for me. 365 hits in just 118 games. That is just over 3 hits per game. I've said it many times on this podcast. The guy is a heat-seeking missile out there. And he's 6'2", 205 pounds. The dude is sturdy. And as you said, Barbashev's a smaller guy who's scrappy. But and while Blay doesn't have the fighting track record, I would say in a cage situation where there's no escape and you have to lock up, I would give this to Blay. Yeah. I mean, I think Barbashev would have a chance. I think he would have a chance because he's proven he can throw the fist, whereas Blay hasn't really yet. But I just think Blay would out physical him, and I think Blay would go in there with no mercy.
Right. Well, Blay at 6'2", he's got the reach advantage too, and he's got the weight advantage as well. Yeah. That's nearly a 20-pound difference between the two. That's a big part of, being able to take down another guy. So for that is definitely Blay in my book, just me personally.
Oh, that's totally fair. Totally fair. By the way, early results from our Twitter poll on Perron and Sunquist. I just had them up, and then my Twitter refreshed on me and just sent them off to Neverland here. Turns out when you follow a lot of people on Twitter, it's easy for your own post to get kind of lost in the shuffle. Perron, right now it's 4-0 Perron over Sunquist.
Perron over Sunquist, okay.
We'll see where that is at the end of the episode. We'll make the official ruling at that point, but just wanted to give our listeners an update. By the way, Derek thinks that Blay would fall over first. Blay makes a lot of hits, but half the time he falls on the ice instead of the opponent. So we would need to see how Blay's ground game works there. He's got a point.
I kind of got a point. I'm still going to go Blay just because that 20 pounds is a lot.
Yeah.
That's my thing. But I mean, I think that would be a fun matchup to watch.
I just don't think Barbashev would have the technique, for an unstoppable force like Blay. Yeah. I don't think maybe Dunn might. I mean, that might be an interesting matchup next week because
the roommates, the apartment roommates.
That's right. Suit, and you know what? We know Vince Dunn would win the Fortnite battle. Yeah, Dunn would crush Blay on Fortnite, but what about a real fight? We'll find out. And next matchup, this one's a very interesting one here. Probably the most interesting of this first round in my opinion, because it really.
It could go either.
It really depends on how you view these players.
Yeah.
Justin Falk versus Colton Parayko. Justin Falk has 7 NHL fights. He is 3-0-4. His last 4 fights have been draws, according to Hockey Fights, where basically on Hockey Fights you have yes, no, or draw. And then in the last 4 fights, he has more draws than yeses or no. So that's how I kind of determined that's a draw. He has 1,144 hits in 681 games, so he averages about 1.7 hits per game. So he
leads the Blues in hits this year as well.
He has been a very violent gentleman. He's been a very violent gentleman this year. He's 6 foot 217 pounds, so he's more stout, than tall. He will take on Colton Parayko, who has not had a single NHL fight. In fact, his Hockey Fights record is completely barren. No record of him having a fight in juniors. No record of him having a fight.
Because no one will drop the gloves with him. He's a fucking giraffe.
People thought Chara back in the day, but that was a long time ago. Chara.
That's for respect. That's more for respect.
Parayko has 549 hits in 416 games, so just about 1.3 hits per game. Not up. He's not up there. I mean, he's better than average, but not up there in terms of hits. But he is 6'6", 230 pounds. So can Justin Falk break through the reach and size advantage to pummel Parayko, or is Parayko's size going to be too much? By the way, Chris Shockey thinks it'll be Colton just because of reach.
What do you think?
Oh, you're putting it back on me.
Yes, I'm putting it back on you because I have no idea.
Well,
this is hard. And this is assuming, by the way, this is assuming Parayko has a good back, by the way.
Assuming, all these players have a clean bill of health, by the way. So just
There we
FYI.
There we go.
I'm going to go with Falk because, as you said, he's the Blues hit leader this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Parayko's a nice man. He is a
teddy bear.
Being.
He is.
He's a big teddy bear who can be physical, but it doesn't necessarily mean he has been. I mean, I think there's a lot of Blues fans that would love to see Parayko throw the body a little bit more.
Derek.
Yeah, and I agree with Derek. He votes for Falk because Parayko's just It would be basically,
it'd come down to experience and personality.
I mean, Parayko would probably stand, right at the face-off dot, and he would let Falk work around him, and then Falk would just come in for his opportunity. And once Parayko's off his feet, it's done.
Yep.
By the way, I guess I should point. I guess we are kind of looking at this like a UFC fight instead of a hockey fight. I guess maybe
kind of, but whatever. This is a made-up tournament. It's made-up rules. Who cares?
Basically, all Falk needs to do is slip one jab and then get under, and then I'll just uppercut him on the chin, and it's done. So
Justin Falk's got a lot of power packed into his stature. He's only 6'0", but like 217. That's a lot of muscle on him. So and at 6'6", 230 with Parayko, that's pretty skinny for 6'6". So and that's kind of why I'm inclined to agree on Falk.
And he's been in absolute beast mode this year on hits. I mean, he is probably averaging over 2 hits per game at this point. So I mean, I would say just for the killer instinct alone, I would go with Falk. But it'd be close. I think it'd be close.
It'd be closer than people think. I reckon. I think so.
Agree. I agree with that. Next fight, which I don't think will be particularly close, Mackenzie McEachern versus Kyle Clifford. So McEachern.
Oh, Mac to the moon! Holy shit!
Let's get through Mac first here. He has an 0-1 NHL record, 165 hits in 100 games, so 1.65 hits per game. 6'2", 190 pounds, a good fourth line moxie type, taking on Kyle Clifford, who has 96 NHL fights. 96 NHL fights. And I would have had to go into each and every single fight to count his record, and I'm not counting that. I mean, when you fight 96 NHL fights, what's your
source?
Hockey Fights.
Hockeyfights.com. So I'll look at it for you.
To tally all these, well, you're going to be here a while because you have to click on each and every fight to determine who the Hockey Fights voters thought won.
Yeah, I'm just gonna look at it.
I would have still been counting this, by the way, now because I started counting these earlier this afternoon. We wouldn't have started at Bluenotes on time if
definitely no.
Start tallying. So 90, I feel that 96 NHL fights that kind of stands on its own legs. He also has 1,557 hits in 723 games, a little over 2 hits per game. He is 6'2", 211 pounds, and he destroys Mackenzie McEachern here.
For sure. No contest.
Pure destruction. Clifford wins. Although he has kind of, I feel Clifford is, he's definitely eased off as, the game has changed. Because when he started, you would still have players that would have, 5 to 10 fights per season, no problem. And he was a guy that was having like 11 to 15. He was one of the big fighting leaders, but then, of course, as the game past decade has evolved, he doesn't fight as much as he used to. But once 96 fights. Come on.
Okay, so according to this place, this thing that I'm looking at, he has a 0.67 wins to loss fighting ratio.
Okay, so basically, we're saying that he has won about 60 NHL fights.
Yeah.
That's
about 60, about 65.
He's going to the finals probably. And then our final 4 matchups here. If you're watching, I'm scrolling down right now. Our next matchup is Nico Mikkola. This is a good one. Taking on Marco Scandella. So Mikkola has 1 NHL fight. It just happened recently against Maxime Comtois this year, and he beat him pretty good.
Boy.
48 hits in 33 games. He has about a 1.5 hit per game average. Another big boy, 6'4", only 185 pounds, and that's when you see him on the ice, he's definitely not a big beefy guy, but he's pretty tall and he can be pretty imposing. He's taking on Marco Scandella, who has 6 NHL fights, has not won one according to Hockey Fights. He has an 0-4-2 record. He tries, but he just doesn't.
Just doesn't.
2 AHL fights and 7 fights in juniors. So he definitely was a scrapper coming up.
He's got experience. He's not good, but he's got experience.
He averages about exactly 1 hit per game, 627 hits in 626 games. He stands 6'3", 212 pounds, so an inch shorter, but he's bulkier. He's about 28 pounds. He's got 27 pounds on Mikkola. Who do you got? I'm gonna let you go first.
This is probably not what you're I'm picking Marco Scandella on this one. Just because the stocky build, I think it's too much. I think hush! No. I think Scandella I definitely think Scandella beats Mikkola just because A, experience, B, he's just a stockier guy. I don't think the 2-inch difference does much. That's what I think.
We've established that 3 inches makes the difference, so
Right, 3 inches is the difference, exactly.
Yes.
Tell that to every single one of my exes.
Moving on. By the way, Derek and Chris, if you have an opinion on this, it might help steer me a little bit.
Not 3 inches, but the matchup. You started this. Now I'm finishing it.
I did. By the way, Chris says Nico would win the fight. And that's what I'm going with because you know what? This is my show. This is my tournament, and I love Nico Mikkola.
We got another tie.
You start Mikkola. That's the hashtag. I think Scandella's. I just don't see killer instinct in Scandella that I do in Mikkola. I think Mikkola is the more heady, the more tenacious player.
Gotcha.
He does, and he does have a reach advantage. He is fighting above his weight a little bit, just in terms of physical weight.
If we keep in mind, 185 for 6'4" is skinny.
It is.
That's a stick. That's where it comes down to, in my opinion. That's what it comes down to, is because Marco Scandella is just so stocky. A 6'4", 185 isn't going to take down 217. It's just not. I don't think so.
Yeah, Chris was at the game with the Nico fight. He said it was very impressive. Derek votes Mikkola. Can't say why though. So
everyone seems to be saying Mikkola. So I don't think we need to do a Twitter poll here. I think we should go Mikkola here.
Yeah,
but I'm yeah.
By the way, worth noting, Maxime Comtois is 6'2", 215. So and Mikkola beat him in a fight.
Okay.
So,
all right. Let's go Mikkola.
Yeah, we'll go Mikkola here. But it's close. Close. If Wags were here, he could be the tiebreaker, but he's not here.
Wags.
Boo!
Can we get a boo? Boo!
Boo this man!
Boo! All right. Next matchup. Now that we're done booing Wags, is probably.
Oh no!
This one is going to be the slaughter of the first round here. This one is not even close. I know why you put these two together because they're both named Robert, but we have Robert Thomas versus Robert Bortuzzo. Do I even need to go through the tail of the tape here? No.
Let's
by the way, worth noting,
not only is Thomas going to lose, he's going to get snapped in half. Okay, it's just not a contest here. This is more of a beatdown than Clifford versus McEachran. All right, this is close.
It's also worth noting, by the way, that Robert Thomas has the least hits per game out of anyone in this tournament at .17. He is not a physical guy at all. Bortuzzo has 29 NHL fights. He's 6'4", 216 pounds. He has the size, he has the experience, he has the killer instinct, and Robert Thomas is going to probably have an injury after that fight happens. So
yes, he will be snapped in half. It will not be good.
Basically, it's going to be like Thanos snapping his, fingers. It's going to be that easy for Robert.
Right.
Next fight. Torrey Krug takes on Jake Wallman. Now, Torrey Krug is only 5'9", 186 pounds, but he is 5'9", 186 pounds of moxie. He has 12 NHL fights. He has a 4-5-3 record because he is
respectable.
He is 5'9", 186 pounds, so that's why his win total isn't as probably great as it should be. But respect. 460 hits in 571 games, has a 0.8 hits per game average. He takes on Jake Wallman, who has not fought anyone anywhere. Does average about a hit per game during his time with the Blues, only 25 games. And he does stand 6'1", but he's only 170 pounds. So Krug actually has the weight and base advantage here. I think Krug wins this one pretty handily.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, Jake Wallman just flat out doesn't have the experience, first off. But Torrey Krug, I knew he knew how to fight. I didn't know he's been in 12, though. So that's actually a surprise to me. But yeah, Torrey Krug wins this one for sure, just because. I mean, Jake Wallman's no tall guy by any stretch of the imagination either. So, I mean, yeah, I think he does. I think he wins.
All right, I think you're getting a phone call here. Mason.
I'm getting a phone call for sure.
We said something. We've said
a lot of things. Yes.
We have. We really have. So you see what happens when Wags isn't here to,
Wags needs to be. Wags is our
keep us on track. Living the clean and healthy life. Terrible. All right, last matchup. It's a goalie fight.
There we go.
It's Ville Husso taking on Jordan Binnington. And Ville Husso has not fought anything anywhere. He's 6'3", 205 pounds, so he does have the size advantage. But he's taking on Jordan Binnington, who has 2 AHL fights. Both were ruled draws on hockey fights, which is fair. I mean, I've never really seen a decisive goalie.
I've never seen a decisive goalie fight.
No,
they both go down at the same time. It's just a big heap and mass of pads and shame. So.
Or like Cujo would do with Mike Vernon. They would just punch each other out and then just like hug afterwards, and that's that.
Yeah.
So and one of those fights, by the way, was against former Blue Phoenix Copley. Worth noting there. 6'1", 174 pounds. No NHL fights yet, but as we know, Binnington, sometimes likes to fight entire teams like he did with San Jose, or at least try to pick a fight with them. So I think just on pure moxie alone, it's Binnington.
Yeah, better for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. There's literally no argument I can make for Ville Husso because I have no
the size. That's it.
That's about it. But that's just like there's no evidence that Husso would do well in the fight.
Mm-hmm. Well, you never know with Husso because he could have that suddenly break out one time and just go absolutely ham. So yeah, you never know.
Yeah. Your mom's still not approving, by the way.
What the heck? We haven't said anything.
She haven't said anything in about 5 minutes. So
it's been like 5 minutes.
We have gone 5 minutes without saying anything offensive.
That's pretty good. For this podcast, that's pretty good.
That should be like a tally on the top right of the screen.
Days since last dick joke.
By the way, Chris Shockey did point out that Waugh beat the hell out of Osgood. So that I did actually forget that. I think that'd be one where Waugh got the decision. Maybe I don't think he actually took Osgood down to the ground. So anyway, that is the first round of our Bare-Knuckle Blues Bracket. Again, we will post polls for all these matchups just to see where you guys are doing. I may create a separate bracket just based on the poll vote as well, just so we can kind of compare notes here and have something to discuss here. And our final ruling on Sundqvist versus Perron, it's David Perron. He wins with 80% of the votes. So there we go. So David Perron will go ahead and advance. I'll go ahead and reflect that here on our bracket.
All right.
And we will be have the round of 16 next week, featuring matchups that include Vladimir Tarasenko versus Nathan Walker, Braden Shen versus Klim Kostin, Dakota Joshua versus Carl Gunnarsson, David Perron versus a healthy Alex Steen, Vince Dunn versus Sammy Blais, Justin Falk versus Kyle Clifford, Nico Mikkola versus Robert Bortuzzo, and Torrey Krug versus Jordan Binnington. So start making your prognostications now. No, DraftKings will not accept your wagers for these matchups.
Unfortunately, gosh, they should though.
They should. They really don't know what they're missing.
They don't know what they're missing at all. So that's going to do it for me. Mason, any final thoughts?
Nope. Just happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there that may be watching this one, and hopefully the Blues finish the season strong. I'm really looking forward to the playoffs. Next time we meet, the regular season should be done. Next time we do a podcast, right?
Yes, it should be. Yeah, the last game is Thursday, so
there we go. Then, so we should be good. And the playoffs will probably start on that Sunday, I reckon. So,
and Robin, please don't punish Mason too much.
Don't send me to my room, Mom.
And that's going to do it for Bluenotes. I want to thank you for listening and watching, because without you, there is no me, there is no Wax, so that doesn't count, and there is no Mason, and there is no Hockey Podcast Network.
There really is no Wags. There really is.
Yeah, there really isn't. By the way, I'm Tom Franklin, reminding you to not be a chump, and since Mason won't do it, always play to the whistle.
A reminder that you can follow Bluenotes on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bluenotes Pod. I'm the voice of the Blues, Tom Calhoun. Jeremy Boyer, play us out.
You're listening to the Hockey Podcast Network, your home for hockey talk covering every team in the NHL. New episodes every Monday. Download at thehockeypodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts from.